Good evening, punters, and welcome to another episode of the TryPod, where we break down every single NRL game every week from a punting perspective. This week we will be going through our tips and what we learnt from round 6 and what a round it was. 15 best bets in total, 13 wins, 2 losses. If you had put $100 on every best bet this whole season, you'd be up nearly $2,000. Not only that, we cash all 5 of our LADBROKES same game multis that we gave out this week. So an absolute cracker of a round. And look, we don't do this often. We do everything for free. We give out our free tips, free podcasts, so we don't ask for much. But I think after a week like this, it's fair to ask, look, if you guys do enjoy the tips, if you do enjoy the podcast, feel free to share it with your friends, invite them to the group, leave us a review on the podcast or on our app, and it would be greatly appreciated to help us grow. Jacob, what a round.
Well, yeah, 13-2, as you said. Not even what a round. The last 3 weeks, we've given out 51 best bets. We have won 75% of them. You guys realize you're not meant to win money betting. The odds are set up. The bookies make money every year. They're set up for you to lose. It's not meant to, you're not even meant to break even. And we are killing the bookies. So it's fantastic stuff. Really enjoying it.
And what I would say as a word of warning, if you have just happened to found our podcast now or our page now, this isn't going to continue. Well, at least we don't think it's going to continue for the rest of the season. But look, stick with us long term and you will win money. Let's start off with what we just saw, Jacob. It was the Sharkies beating the Bulldogs 20 points to 18. It was a decent, entertaining game, actually. We had 2 best bets on the game. We were on the Dogs. We cashed both of those best bets, sweep the game. I thought it was a pretty good game. I thought the Bulldogs got a little bit unlucky in the first half. I mean, Katoa scores a hat-trick, but the first 2 tries, like that first one, you know, it was a freaking ridiculous try, but the wingers can do that these days. And then the second one he picks up from his shoelaces, like, that's a pretty ridiculous one as well. But the Bulldogs fought hard. I thought that their discipline was probably what let them down here. And when you're a team like the Bulldogs and it's tough for you to score points, you cannot be giving away, you know, back-to-back set restarts. I think that was for the second Katoa try. And then, like, in the second half, when it's late, you know, 1-score game, you're giving away tackle restarts. So I would like to just say, just in regards to, I know we spoke about it before this round started, about the sin binning and cracking down on that kind of stuff. And a lot of punters I hear in the group were saying this week, shit, you know, we really have to take note of this because there were a shitload of sin bins this week. I think it will ease up next week. I think they kind of always try and make a point of it first week.
That was a bloody entertaining game. That game that we just watched summed up the round. Entertaining footy. And we're playing the hits. How many good hits were there?
Oh, my God.
And I mean, poor Matt Moylan.
Got knocked into the shadow dimension.
Props to him for getting up because I thought he was dead. The hit. And what did I say on Wednesday night? With Tenny Selesniak, the human sledgehammer, and he does it with the ball and without the ball.
Unreal.
But like hits all through the weekend. The footy is more entertaining to watch. And you mentioned Katoa. I actually think that was the only difference in the game was his fingertips. He picks that one up off his bootlaces for the try that extends it to a 2-score game. And in the first half as well, that the finish, you know, perfection. And it was a bloody close game. And you're right, those repeat sets. I will say the sin bin in the second half on Wakeham, I thought it was garbage. I thought momentum was going forwards. He had a right to lay into Dugan. It looked rough. If you're going to overreact to give a penalty, that's one thing. Sending him to the bin was a killer. Although the Dogs actually did survive that period, it was still a tough call.
Well, it was a tough call, but then did you hear the ref say it's not for that?
It's dangerous contact.
No, it was for repeated infringements because he's like, that's 3 pens in a row, which is still bullshit in my eyes. But anyway, let's rewind to Thursday night. We had the Knights beating the Broncos 27 points to 6. We had 2 best bets in the game, as you can see there on the screen. We do win both of those. We were on the Knights in this one, and they were just too good. And look, this is another game where the Broncos have failed to score a point in the second half, and it's becoming a trend now. And you know, moving forward, I know that they're saying, you know, once we get our forwards back, we won't be as tired in the second half, all this kind of stuff. But you see this Broncos team in the second half, they do look unfit or not as fit as their opposition, and they haven't. So moving forward, I think, you know, I guess it's the secret's out now, but trending towards playing against the Broncos in second halves because that fitness does look like an issue. And look, in terms of the Knights, I'll have to admit, I have to upgrade the Knights. I know you were higher on the Knights to start the season, Jacob, and I was probably a little bit lower on them, but they are building very nicely. Pearce is, you know, playing arguably his best footy that he has, even though he's, you know, old now. And they're getting, their forward pack is completely legit. So I rate this Knights team, and I may have made a mistake. I have to upgrade them a little bit.
Yeah, let's start with the Broncos. Every week the excuse is players are out, and I understand that, but you watch it more closely. There's more issues in that attitude. The tries that they're letting in, like the Saifidi try. I mean, their attitude, they're not strong there. And to me, it comes down to leadership. Like, who are the leaders out on the field? Because the highest paid players in this team and the most capped players are guys like Darius Boyd and Milford. And I hate to keep dumping on these guys, but they're their worst players each week, and you need your leaders to carry you. Let's talk about the Knights. I mean, they're middle forwards. So you got Daniel Saifidi, Dave Clemmer, and Glasby all played Origin, and then you got Jacob Saifidi and Esse come off the bench. I mean, that's an exceptional forward pack. It's certainly going to get stronger when Barnett comes back. And as you said, don't forget he won man of the match 5 straight matches last year when they had a 6-game winning streak. And, of course, Ponga playing off the back of it. So they're an exceptional team that, as you say, are building towards special things in 2020.
And then the Friday early game was the Rabbitohs beating the Warriors 40 points to 12. This was one of our favourite games of the round. We loved South. We had 4 best bets on the game. We do go 4-0 and sweep another game. And South were just too good here. And we've been saying this for the last few weeks, that once this South team gets fully fit, gets all their players back, they're going to build quite nicely. And I think that, I don't necessarily think the secret's out here for the Rabbits. I mean, they've had 2 very good wins in a row, 12 tries in the last 2 games, and that attack seems to be humming. Latrell's getting better every game now with the addition of Cody Walker. The attack looks really dangerous. But even so, I think probably moving forward, they are a little bit underrated because people are going to look at those last 2 wins and say, well, they were against pretty lowly opponents. So I want to bet on the Rabbitohs in the coming weeks. In terms of the Warriors, just outclassed in this one. And gee, I feel bad for Kearney getting sacked after just a horrific season. He got these Warriors players, what I thought were putting in after the restart. So, look, I'd have to say be careful betting on this Warriors side next week, especially because usually you do get that fired coach bounce, but you hear what's coming out of these Warriors players, and they loved him. They think that, he was hard done by, and some of the players are thinking of flying back home because of this Kearney sacking. So in terms of the coach bump for next week for the Warriors, I would not be counting on that at all.
Yeah, they've had a tumultuous month. They've been underdogs in all 4 games since the lockdown. They've won 2 of 4. They sit higher on the ladder than the Broncos. No doubt the Broncos have got a better roster than the Warriors. Seabold's still got a job. I can't understand it. I think there's more to the story. But from a punting perspective, I think you're right. You often look for a team to lift with a new coach. But if they loved the coach, then that could actually spell trouble. This result wasn't much about the Warriors being that bad either. It was more about the Rabbitohs being classy, Cook having a field day, and on top of that, there were a few decisions early in the first half, including like a suspect sin bin, that all went against the Warriors. They lost Lockie Burr after 5 minutes. They lost Eli Katoa to an injury. They didn't really have much of a chance. I just want to make one other point about this game. There was a very interesting late line move. We bet on the Rabbitohs. I think we got -5.5 with a combination of 2 bets, right? But the line was basically 7.5 on Wednesday.
Correct.
Pretty sure it was 7.5 on Thursday. By Friday when this game kicked off, it was 11.5, and I was thinking, Warriors must have outs or something. No, the only out was Roberts wasn't going to return and Fusitua was in. So when no personnel went in favour of our tip, but the line moved 4 points. I'm not going to sit here and say it was all because we had 4 best bets on the Rabbitohs, but it's no joke that our bets are moving the markets. As I said, we're 75% winners. Maybe there was other smart money that just agreed with us, because how else do you explain a big late move to the Rabbitohs to push them to double-digit favourites?
And it was and there was 12.5 I heard in some places. And
yeah,
look,
true,
I guess we're not going to take credit for all of that. And maybe it is, mostly us, but maybe it's partly us. But you're right. The rest of the movement, if it's moving nearly 6 points, is sharp punters getting on that. That's for sure. Let's move on to the Panthers beating the Storm 21-14. That was an absolute cracker. Well, didn't really like a side in this one, and probably good that we stayed away. I guess we had a lean to the Panthers, so we probably would have won our bets, but stayed away from this one. Completely legit performance by the Panthers, and I know that I said at the start of the season, I really think this Panthers side is going to be solid. You look at their body of work now. Now, they've beaten the Roosters this season. They've beaten the Storm this season. They're up 14-0 against the Knights and let that one slip. But you look at what the Knights have done since then. They've been a completely legit team. They're 10-0 up against the Eels, and that they blew that one. And now the Eels are, I'd say top two team in the comp at the moment. So this Panthers side is building very nicely now that they've got Cleary back. So I'm upgrading the Panthers from this one. I don't know what's wrong with this Storm team. I know the Panthers played really well in this one, but the Storm really do not look like themselves. I said last week to watch out for this game because the Storm were very clinical the week before. Minimal errors, minimal penalties, and this one they doubled up, I think, their error count and their penalties conceded. So I think moving forward, in terms of just a general betting thing, you do want to look at like the errors and stuff, because if a team has a game where they have just hardly any errors, I think most of that is luck. I don't know if you'd agree with me there, Jacob. I think most of that's luck, and generally that trends to the mean. So I think that was a good game for this one. Storm.
And a good example of that is Warriors in round 3 complete the first 44 sets of the match.
Exactly.
And then everyone goes, "Oh, Warriors, they're a real deal." Next week, they lose 28-0 to the Panthers because you can't repeat that. And look, this Panthers-Storm game, it said to me a lot more about the Panthers. It said that they can join the elite status of teams because, they beat the Roosters that was round 1, wasn't it? But we knew the Roosters weren't going to come out firing. But very impressive loss last week to the Eels where they were on top for 60 minutes. And I thought a young side might struggle to recover from that. And the Storm have always got the Panthers' number. But the Panthers were the better team in this one. Cleary is clearly improving to potentially be the best halfback in the comp. He's really classy. And what about Kickout? Gets injured. I think the Storm pulled the game back to level. And you're going, now the Storm will get over the top of them. Comes back on, catches the bomb for the winning try. And as I said, I give more credit to the Panthers and I won't take much away from the Storm. I'm still not worried about them. I still believe, and you can tell me if you disagree, maybe you're going to say Parramatta, but I still think the Storm has the best chance of stopping the Roosters three-peating this season. So certainly I'm not going to overreact to a loss in what close game.
Yeah, I think you're probably bang on the money there. And if I can just add about that kick-out try, you know what I hate that's becoming a trend in the NRL? When players put up a bomb and there's chasers running through, they just would prefer to fucking block than actually go up and catch it. And, kick-out got a fucking clean run to catch that ball. Anyway, the Dragons beat the Titans 20 points to 18. We didn't have a best bet on this one as well. I wish I let Jacob twist my arm for this one. We did have a $200 side bet. I was on the Titans. Jacob was on the Dragons. He obviously gets up in this one. It's a pretty messy game. I don't really know what I'm taking out of this one. I guess, a bit more confidence for this Dragons side. We kind of said coming into the season that it was a team that you wanted to bet on, and then they kind of started real ugly. And in the last couple of weeks, they've had those 2 wins over pretty lowly opponents. But I think that's going to get them some confidence back. In terms of the Titans, they just really lack that spark in attack. And I think that, when you have Taylor and Fogarty in the halves, I know Corey Thompson added a little bit of spark at fullback, but it's just like the forwards aren't getting any go forward. There's not enough spark in attack. So it's a tough one, this Titans team, because you're going to get these high lines every week. But with the way that the NRL is played at the moment, it is easy for these shitty teams to get blown out.
Yeah, I can't take much out of this game either because Corey Thompson, who was newly slotted in at fullback, he was injured within 15 minutes. Yep. Tony Mapeo was injured. Philip Sammy was injured. So they had Tyrone Peachey playing fullback. So when you lose 3 starting outside backs and you're down, I will say for the Dragons, Hunt at 9 and just letting McInnes just be a workhorse in the middle of the field. That is the right mix. Dufty is the right fullback for this team. He threw a beautiful pass for 1 try, and just generally with his speed in and around the ruck is suited to the style of play. And Normie is not a fullback. He is a good 5'8". He also laid on a beautiful ball for a try. So the Dragons, they're a limited team, but they're a confident side. They got up in this one, and it was never close. I know 28, you might think it was close, but it was 20-2 until late. But as you say, that nothing went right for the Titans in that one. But I'm happy to take your money for the side bet.
You have absolutely crushed me in the side bets this season. Next up, the Tigers beat the Cowboys 36-20. We had 2 best bets on the Tigers, and we win both of them. Another crazy game. What a fucking crazy game. The Tigers come out of the blocks firing. I think they scored 2 tries in the first 6 minutes. They're up 34-0. It's an NRL record at halftime, and then the Cowboys really came back, which I didn't expect, because we've been saying that this Tigers team is one of the fitter teams, that you should bet them second half. They really switched off in that second half and let the Cowboys back into it, and I tell you, the Cowboys had chances down the stretch there in that second half. They could have come all the way back, But disappointing from the Cowboys again, and I really don't know what's going on there. I came into the season with high hopes for the Cows. I know they come into this one under strength, and without Val Holmes, they really do lack that spark. But the Tigers, another win, and it's probably a disappointing win, obviously, for Benji, because he's going to keep himself maybe out of the team here. Reynolds will keep his spot, and I actually do think that the Tigers team is better with Benji in there, but another impressive win for the Tigers.
And another interesting line move, because the line was 5.5
Flew
on Saturday. We got -1.5 on Wednesday, and it was 1.5 at a couple of bookies.
Yep.
Yes, it was 2.5 in places, but it moved another 3 to 4 points without any personnel. Again, is it because we were on the Tigers, or, was it just the public agreed with us and there was not many people brave enough to take the Cowboys, and you didn't want to be on them? As you say, 34-0. My takeaway from the first half, Harry Grant, I'm watching him going, geez, you can pick this guy for Queensland. This guy is all class. We'll get to the next game where we saw Marnie against Jake Friend, but he is superb. I think he's the key playmaker on this Tigers team. I wonder, it was inexcusable first half performance by the Cowboys. I wonder, there was news through the week that Paul Green might be leaving. That doesn't do a team chemistry any favours when you hear your coach might be out the door. But I'm not going to read too much into the second half, because you do see a team like 34-0 is game over.
Sure.
And they did mentally switch off. And you say they could have come back. I think the closest they got was 34-18. Like, that's still 16 points down. And the result was over really after 25 minutes of play, to be honest. And we should also mention, we went 13-2 this round, but we also gave out a 16th player last Wednesday, which is looking beautiful now.
Oh.
We took the Knights next week, minus just 1 point. Knights -1, $1.88 against the Cowboys. I don't think it's going to close -1 in round 7.
Pretty sure it's sitting at -8.5 at the moment. Let's move on to the game of the round. It's the Roosters beating the Eels 24-10. This is the one game that we lost bets on the round. We liked the Eels in this one, and we went 1-2 on the game. I think, honestly, got a little bit unlucky to go 1-2. This was an absolute cracker of a game, played at a super fast tempo. Kind of reminded me of the tempo that the Parramatta Panthers game was played at. Just really, really solid from both teams. And honestly, I don't think that the Eels deserved to lose by 14. So once again, as bettors, if you get to watch all the games, or if you didn't watch the game, you'd think, shit, the Eels just got trounced in this one. That wasn't the case. I thought that the Eels were the better team for probably, after the 20-minute mark. I probably thought that the Eels dominated for most of the rest of the game until it got to the end. Some ill discipline fucked them. They gave away 7 penalties to 3. They had 11 errors to 4. So they lost all those counts and still had a very, very solid chance of winning that game. But the Roosters, once again, they are the best team in the comp. But I take away from this one that the Eels are right up there with them. And Jacob, have you heard about Teddy? He should be fine for next round. He got lit up.
He did, but it was actually a gutsy play by him. Like, people are kind of laughing at him. I mean, what do you expect him to do? He threw his body. I tell you what, Darius Boyd can play for another 1,000 years. He'd never put his body in front of Mike Acevo like that. So, again, give respect to a guy who got put on his ass in that one. But a lot of people are calling that game one of the games of the season. So I think the fact that we had either team to win 1-10 and we had the Eels plus 8.5, we'll live with those plays. Even late in the game, they were down 8 and we would have cashed all 3 of our best bets.
Yep.
But they got a sin binning. They dropped their heads. And as you say, weight of penalties. We went 1-2. Even when you have good bets on a game, it doesn't always go your way. And when you bet against a brilliant team and a generational team like the Roosters are, sometimes that will happen. And hats off to the Roosters. But first, it was 1 try to nil at halftime, but it was 8-0 to the Roosters because of penalties.
Yep.
I thought the Para did really well to keep it to 1 try. They were under siege in the first half.
They were. And
you knew that they were keeping themselves in the game. The first 20 minutes by Parramatta in the second half was some of the best footy I've ever seen. They were unbelievable. They laid on 2 amazing tries. They nearly had another one. The way that they just without hesitation spiral these 20, 30-meter passes, cut out balls. Marnie gets the ball off an offload, doesn't think twice. He'll fire at 30 meters on a dime to Moses to let things happen. Even if they get an offloaded bloke like a front rower like Campbell Gillard or Paulo, they'll fling it to their outside backs, their playmakers.
Yep.
It was so entertaining to watch. It was awesome. And, of course, they came back from 8-0 down. They got the 10-8 lead. And I just want to give a soccer analogy. I played lots of soccer and watched it over the years. You could have a game that's 0-0 and nobody even looks like scoring. And then one team scores. And that next period of like 60 seconds, you so often get that lapse because the team celebrates and feels like they're going to win. You get this other side scoring, and that's pretty much what happened. The Roosters were able to seize the moment, that Parramatta, the emotion that they felt, coming all the way back, kicking a sideline conversion, and then they switched off. Literally, the very set that the Roosters touched the ball, they were breaking tackles, they make a long break, and they got back in front. And even at that point, the Roosters were up 4, but then, as I said, Jennings got sin binned. I want to make a couple other points. The Morris brothers, ageless, unbelievable in attack and in defense.
Yeah,
they are. There's no one playing better than them. And I wanted to actually say this last week, or a couple of weeks ago. People question maybe the motivation of the Roosters. Not that they don't want to win 3 in a row, but can they possibly be as hungry?
Right.
Josh Morris has never won the comp. He left the Dragons before they won the comp. He wasn't there last year. I mean, Brett wants to win it with his brother, and the team respects these guys so much. They want to win it for him. And there's going to be nothing better for these two who've had phenomenal careers than to top it off, going out, twin brothers, winning a comp together. Do not question the motivation of this team because, honestly, right there, these guys lead by example. One other thing, and I'll let you just throw out any names at me you want. Who do you think the best second rower in the comp is? Because throw anyone that comes to mind. Dave Fafita, Frizzell, Wade Graham, Bateman was second rower of the comp last year. Kickow, even Madison was amazing, right? And they all have highlight plays. The guy who doesn't have highlight plays is Boyd Cordner. But he does the dirty work. He does the hard stuff. He takes those carries when they're up against it, when they need to get off their line. He does the things that doesn't make the highlights. There's a reason why he's captain New South Wales and the Roosters to back-to-back winning years. So you just have to shout out a guy like Captain Cordner in that one. Phenomenal game, even though we didn't win the money.
Yeah, and he's trailing through on that Kiri break to score the try. All right, let's get on to the early game today. It was the Sea Eagles beating the Raiders 14 points to 6. We liked Manly in this one, and we go 2-0 on our bets. Look, I guess easy to say you were on the right side when you pick a 4.5-point underdog and they win by 8 points, but this was not as easy as it seemed. You had Dylan Walker get injured and Brad Parker get injured in the first 6 or 7 minutes. So at that point, you're thinking, fuck me dead. We are looking grim for this Sea Eagles bet. Then Tommy Turbo gets injured later on, so they were just decimated down to 1 on the bench, this Sea Eagles side. What a win. I mean, honestly, I know that the Raiders did not have their best performance. I know you've mentioned this a number of times, Jacob, that we are a little bit lower on this Raiders side and kind of have been all season long ever since the preseason. And this was a pretty bad performance by them. A lot of errors, didn't have the go-forward that they had last year. And, for the Sea Eagles to lose those 3 key players and put on a performance like that is very, very impressive. And I think that'll do a world of good for their mentality. Daly Cherry Evans was awesome in this one. I thought he controlled the game really well and did exactly what you need to do when you lose, your star players and kind of have to just control the ball and that kind of thing. Look, in terms of the Tommy Turbo injury, they're saying 6 weeks now. It's a tough one to say what to do with Manly in the coming weeks because you're going to get, injured player theory and the team is going to lift. But this was my worry, especially with the Sea Eagles side in terms of betting futures on them. Just they had so many injury-prone players. So we'll see what Manly comes up with in future weeks. But this Raiders side needs to get going. This is a number of weeks now in a row where they haven't been their best. It's becoming a bit of a trend.
And they will kick themselves because that game was there to be won for the reasons you said. And ultimately, they might miss the 4 by points difference or by 1 win. Manly might have that spot over them and they'll look at a game like that and say, how didn't they win? Because even before kickoff...
And the way the Panthers are playing now and stuff.
That's right. I'm assuming that the Storm, the Roosters and the Eels... But you're right, Panthers are knocking on the door. And the Knights are going to be in the mix too. So these wins... And it's a shortened season. So you can't let these opportunities slip. But I said, I like Manly more than the Raiders. I think that they're a better team. But I understood why the Raiders were favourites today. Marty Tapau wasn't playing. Moses Sully wasn't playing. So they were up against it already. And Dylan Walker got injured in the 3rd minute. Parker in the 4th minute. So,
So
I was sweating. But I tell you what, obviously, Turbo is such an amazing player, and that's what breaks your heart that he did his hammy in the second half.
Yep.
But those 2 tries are completely on him. He scores the first try, and he lays on a platter the second try. And they don't win that game without those 2 moments of brilliance that obviously gets them a 12-point cushion that they were able to hang on to. So it's a sensational win. I mean, they gutsy win by Manly, like epitomised by that try saver by Sirenen, late in the game. Because if they would have conceded a try when they were up 8, it would have been hard to keep Raiders out, say, in the last 10 minutes. So amazing win, even though now obviously you can't replace a guy like Turbo, and they had to lose him for extended weeks last year. And Brendan Elliott's a good replacement, but it's also like, how many weeks is Walker going to be out now, and stuff like that. So we'll wait and see. The Raiders do miss a guy like Bateman, who I referenced before. And they've got a huge test next week. They play the Eels. So that's going to be a fascinating one. But to see what we think of that game, you've got to wait till Wednesday.
Indeed you do, and that's where you'll be able to catch us Wednesday night, 6 p.m. But if you're listening to this, you probably know that by now. We may have a few new people, so 6 p.m. on this page is where you'll hear us first for our breakdown of Round 7. But look, guys, thanks again for joining us. Hopefully you won some money on the weekend, and we will see you guys on Wednesday.
Lego.